Oh, hey, can you guys hear me? All right, we got a couple people on. Hey, let me know in the chat if you can hear me, if you can see me. Cool. See if a couple people get on. Give it about a 30 seconds. All right, sounds good. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. I'm excited. Hey, okay, I have a question. Let me know in the chat what you guys said for your speech. Like, what would you do with $14 trillion? Let me know. All right, I'm gonna start it up right now. Okay, here we go. Flashcards ready. Here we go. All right, here we go. When beginning my research, I had to ask myself, why do we want to make a more equitable world? And I eventually concluded on the fact that we want to make a happier and healthier world for everybody. And this automatically made me think about the culture of my grandmother in Denmark. Denmark has been ranked the happiest country in the world for decades. And I asked myself why. And I found that there's no coincidence. Although equitability is not easy, it comes down to fairness for all, creating a happier and healthier world for everyone to live in and that everyone wants to be in. If I had $14 trillion, I would raise the living standards of people around the world and create a more equitable schooling system and focus on educating people about inequities, inequality, and the importance of inclusion. The first way to create a more equitable world is by raising the living standards of people around the world. I think one of the best ways to do this is by creating a universal healthcare system. By doing this would allow that poor and impoverished people would be able to go to the doctor without having to worry about getting in huge debt and having to pay huge medical bills. With my $14 trillion, I would pay off impoverished people's medical bills and help those who can only pay a portion of their medical bills so that they don't have to worry about that as much and they can be able to thrive. More importantly, though, I would create campaigns and programs to create a universal healthcare system. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, quote, Blacks are 1.5 times more likely to be uninsured than whites, and Hispanic uninsured rate is over 2.5 times higher than for whites. By creating this universal healthcare system, this would help those who need it the most, poor and impoverished people who cannot afford, and people who are discriminated against, such as African Americans and Latino people. In creating a universal healthcare system, you wouldn't have to be worried about being insured or not, and you could go to the doctor without having to worry about if you have insurance or how much you have to pay. Secondly, I would create a universal income system so that people in poverty will have a baseline set of money so they would be able to thrive. This would allow people who are poor and impoverished to have a job while also having that safety net of money that they might not have so that they can thrive and move up in society. Although my last 2 points were more focusing on political problems that have been brought up in the past couple of decades, I believe that education is the most important thing in order to create a more equitable world. According to Ulrich Boser, quote, economists have clearly shown that investing in education leads to major economic returns in terms of both salaries and GDP. It also contributes to an overall more successful economy and thriving labor market, as employment tends to closely track increasing educational outcomes. This means that money in education creates better economies, which in turn creates more and better paying jobs for people who are in poverty and impoverished. As important as it is to invest in education, it's just as important to make sure that money goes into the correct places. According to an article by researchers, excuse me, let me get their names, by researchers Bruce J. Biddle and David C. Berliner, quote, throughout America, annual funding per student can range from $4,000 to more than $15,000. This means that in America, funding comes a majority from property taxes, meaning that in higher income areas, schools in higher income areas generally get more funding than those in lower income areas. This means that higher income places have better funded educational systems and schools, whereas lower income areas have worse. What I would do with my $14 trillion is try and change this system so that people in lower income areas have the same educational opportunities as those in higher income areas. Although this is only in America, in most other countries, they don't do it this way. In third world countries, I would focus on building schools and funding schools in poverty-stricken areas so that their economies will be able to thrive. Not only would I build and create schools and fund schools, but I would make sure that there are programs that teach them about inequalities, inequities, and the importance of inclusion so that this trend of creating a more equitable world will transcend generations and move on past me. In conclusion, equitability isn't easy. And $14 trillion, although it may seem like a lot, it's not enough to completely change the world. But by raising living standards and through universal healthcare and universal income, along with creating a more equitable educational system and teaching people about the importance of inclusion, inequalities, and inequities, I believe that it is possible. So in Denmark, where part of my family resides, they have created, although it's not perfect, they've created a society that is a lot more equitable compared to other places. And this is because of their universal healthcare, like I talked about, their equitable schooling, like I talked about, and the overall culture that they've created in Denmark. And I believe that if they can do it, then there's hope that the rest of the world can do it as well. Thank you, guys. That was fun. See you guys later.